you a game sense type of player? Do you like passing plays? And are you in your 30s? I've had a lot of people asking me, Buns, I'm getting older and I don't have as much free time to practice to keep up with these younger and faster players. And my solo queue teammates are just terrible. So how do I do it? How do I still win? And how do I keep improving? Well, let me break it down for you. You see, the problem isn't that your teammates are lacking in their brains, or that your opponents are younger and faster than you. Heck, it's not even because you don't have enough time to practice. The problem is something very different. And when I started doing these things, I was able to get to Supersonic Legend, which is the highest rank in the game, only playing 3 hours a week. Because it's not just about the amount of time you put in. It's actually more about the playstyle that you choose to play. What I most commonly see is players relying on difficult plays. And then you say, Buns, whoa, I don't do that. I don't go up for the fancy flip resets or air dribbles that other players go up for. No, you surely aren't talking about me, right? But that's not what I mean. Sure, the most obvious case of a difficult play is getting multiple touches in the air or on the wall. But there are other difficult plays that take a lot of mechanical precision, but don't actually give some more benefit that another play wouldn't give. These examples are flipping into balls that you want to take control of, redirects in front of the ball with no vision of the opponents, sharp turns to control the ball when you're coming from in front of the ball, and surprisingly, aerial shooting and bounce dribbles. And even though they seem like simple plays, the reality is that they're very difficult to execute. They only give you an advantage if executed perfectly. Otherwise, they end up just giving the opponents the ball or putting your team in a bad position. And even being pass heavy in situations that are actually good, it still relies on your teammate being open and aware enough to realize when that pass is coming and actually utilize it. Which, let's face it, is a big gamble when you're in the landscape of solo queue. So what is the solution to that? Is it to always queue up with a pre-made teammate? Well, not quite. And I'll show you how to make the passes later in this video. So what's a better way to go about it? And what is a good playstyle to have if you might not be the most mechanically apt player yet? Well, it has to do with making plays that are less difficult, but gets your team or yourself into good positions most of the time. And that sounds simple enough, right? They are low risk, high reward plays, if you play that situation out about 100 times. But how do you actually do it, and what situations are they? If you feel unsure and want to optimize your gameplay, you can always reach out to me in private and book a free consultation to discuss what training and playstyle would suit you the best. Let's dive in. The playstyle. I've named this playstyle Punish because it's fitting for what we're looking to do on the page. We're gonna divide it into 3 different parts, and afterwards I'll explain how you can practice this so you can apply it into your own games. And just from the name, you can probably tell that we're trying to make our opponents prone to making mistakes and then punishing those mistakes to score. You'll need to build up a sense of awareness for how to make your opponents awkward and in what positions. To be observant in what positions you typically see the opponents making mistakes and missing the ball. And some examples of those are a ball bouncing off their backboard when they're under it, or bouncing hard off their corner, making a clear downfield above the opponents, or rolling the ball up their corner so it will fall down in front of their net and watching what touch they're gonna get, or simply booming it above the opponents when they're attempting to make a challenge, or play it around them. A famous example of this might be a power slide cut, or a fake. The truth is, there are quite a few of these traps in Rocket League, and a lot of the higher level players know them instinctively from having seen them and observed those situations in their own games, over and over again throughout their time playing. And if you can master just the situations that I just mentioned, you'll already be making your opponents sweat oceans playing against you. Every playstyle has its ways of typically scoring goals. Like if you take a look at your match history of the past 20 games, and you open them to look at the goals that your team has scored, you could categorize how most of those goals actually happened. which in turn shows you the strengths that you have and what you naturally gravitate toward doing. I'm not telling you that you should only do one or two different kinds of plays and try to force them into every situation you're in, but I'm telling you that you should be looking for certain positions and outcomes that you've noticed often give you good results and asking yourself how you can get into those positions more often. You're gonna see gameplay of me playing with this playstyle on keyboard and mouse, with which I only have around 20 to 30 hours played in total. The rank of these lobbies are Champion 2. Try to learn as much as you can by watching me perform this with very basic card control. Alright, so step number 1. Make them awkward. Put it behind them. By seeing when the opponent is too close and finding the open space on the pitch, we can often just shoot high or clear the ball down the pitch to create pressure. Clearing the ball above and behind the opponent puts them on the back foot and prevents them from making a counterattack. And it gives you the chance to get in their face and punish any mistake that they can make. It's like setting a trap because it puts the opponent into a difficult position where any mistake they make can lead to a goal, while there is very little effort and risk on your behalf. And sometimes it really is just an open net if you can send it down pitch toward their net. You oftentimes see this even in the RLCS, where they minimize the risk of a play by clearing it into difficult spots for the opponents to reach, of course with maximum power and without hesitation, because they notice that they don't have space to do anything else without high risk. And if done correctly, the opponents have very few options, and they might struggle with reading the camera angles and the bounces off of the walls and curves, and just struggle to reach the ball. You want to aim the clears to go downfield and never into the side walls or your own corners. This is absolutely crucial for your success, as you don't want the opponent to be able to get a free ball by just waiting midfield. No, the goal is to make it fly far above and behind them in toward their side of the pitch, preferably toward their goal. And in the case of clears and shots, the higher the better, as long as it's not bouncing off the ceiling and down right away. And if you just can't get that much behind the ball or come around it to have an angle to shoot toward their net, then it might just be better to reposition or control the ball, because you won't get that boomer touch, and I would advise you to not clear it again into the side wall or your back corner. So what do we do after we clear the ball down pitch? You should just continue your momentum going forward. If you see that it's going to bounce off their backboard in a way that you can reach, you should try to rebound it yourself. Or if it plainly just goes past the opponent, it might just bounce down for you in time so that you can pick it up and drive it into their net. Or if you see that the opponent can get a touch, you simply wait for their touch and observe as they fumble to try and get back and get a good save. And here's where the punishing part comes in, because oftentimes they won't make a great save from this awkward position, where you can imagine yourself that if it bounces off your own backboard and you're under the ball, one is you can't see the opponent, so the chances of you knowing exactly where they are very low. It causes you to panic. And secondly, there aren't many good touches they can take that are safe. So you will just be waiting for their touch and hopefully they put it back into you or miss the ball. Make sure that as you're crossing the pitch to go forward, you're collecting a lot of boost, and very possibly if the opponent are sitting still as you're driving forward, try to get a demo on your way. But what if the opponents are really spaced out? And that's a very good point. With every play in Rocket League, there is a counterplay, assuming that you know that that play was possible in the first place. If the opponent spaces out really well, enough so that the clear won't go far behind them or above them, you would simply collect boost and start looking at where they're gonna take the ball and position yourself to cut down the space, but not committing too close in case they try to clear it back or play it above you and speed up right away. But the problem itself of clearing the ball into a position that the opponent is already in can be fixed by making sure that you're looking at the opponents and knowing where they are before you make the clear, because clearing it above them can't be done if they're all the way back. And just being aware of where the opponents are will subconsciously alter where you try to clear the ball, because you want to do it into open space where it's difficult for the opponents to reach. So what if the opponent takes control after you've cleared it? This depends on the game mode, as in 3s and in 2s, you can oftentimes drive straight through the ball, assuming you have teammates behind you, to force the opponent to make a play and make sure that you're not faked or outplayed and that you don't commit for too long. This gives you a chance to get a demo on the opponent, or it's just gonna spill out to a position where your teammate can reach it, or that you, while being observant of your surroundings, can turn for it and go again. Just make sure you're not driving into it if the opponent can pop it to shoot it into your net. This means you're doing it in their half because, I mean, let's face it, if you cleared it and the ball is still in your half, the mistake was already made there. Step number 2. Staying behind the ball and wide. To get into these positions where you have a free ball with a run-up with momentum, our playstyle needs to revolve around staying behind the ball and have a wide position, because it is the setup for an effective clear. The goal is to spend less time in front of the ball, because we want to stay in control of the play and have impact wherever it goes. We can avoid this primarily by not being too trigger happy with challenging the opponent's dribbles, or contested balls in general. It will most of the time just put us out of position, in front of the play, under the ball, or, I mean, being above the ball, that would really suck. So if the opponent does catch a dribble with the ball, or goes high up on the wall, we want to make sure we're staying grounded and patient, because we'd prefer to save the ball reactively, or at least not being the first one to make a move. So in case the opponent leaves a big gap between their touches or just makes a mistouch, we have the ability to turn and intercept when it's needed, so that we can use our weapon, which would be to shoot toward their net with power. We do this by, again, avoiding diving at the ball, but that doesn't mean we should be super passive. We still need to be close enough in distance to where if the opponent takes a really bad touch or misses it, we can turn and take it from them. And so that they feel contested and don't feel like they have infinite space to set up. Another one of those traps I was talking about earlier is actually being the first person to jump for a contested ball. It causes you to be the first person to commit while the opponent hasn't yet committed, meaning if they fake you or if they don't go at all, you might be left stranded in front of the ball while they have full control. I mean, you can play once and try to experiment with this and you'll see just how dangerous it can be. So when the opponent is rolling the ball toward your net or has it on their hood, you should be faking your challenge by driving toward the ball and make it look like you're gonna challenge and then turn away, while making sure you have enough space to actually get back if they make a shot or a flick as a reaction to you contesting the ball. And to make this more convincing, you can tap your boost for just a slight bit and then turning away, but then really make sure that you don't end up too close. Fake challenges are going to be our main way to challenge the ball if the opponent has a dribble, especially in the start of the games where everybody is still feeling each other out and getting an idea of how they play. It's better to not commit instantly. If they don't fall for 1 or 2 fakes in a row, then you can try to look to make an actual challenge. But just make sure that you're covering the net and you're not jumping at something where the opponent doesn't actually need to touch it toward your net, but can fake or touch it to the side. And in general, if the opponent is dribbling, we'd prefer to give them a little bit of space to see how they're going to react to it and actually use it. And then when we see roughly what they can do, then we can decide how close we need to be and how we want to challenge. This is all to say that we want to remain in control of how we challenge and not dive as a reaction to them taking control of the ball. And our goal is to make them give the ball away and make them panic, which plays into our playstyle of punishing their mistakes. That's why presence by itself already has most of the benefits of a challenge. In the opponent's corners or near their back wall, it's especially dangerous to make any kinds of dives. And it's really easy to overcommit, which we should be using against our opponents and trying to bait them into challenging in our corner and near our back wall. So instead of challenging and jumping or flipping when you're near their back wall, you should be drive challenging, which is basically when you just drive straight through the ball without a jump or flip, because this keeps you in control of the challenge and allows you to turn back if needed, and still puts pressure on the opponent to make a move, otherwise you're just gonna either bump them or take the ball. Number 3, use your eyes. This may sound obvious, but it's really not. Your sight determines most of the information that you get while playing the game. And where you're looking while driving around the pitch determines what information you're most likely to get. And it's easy to get carried away staring at the ball when playing Rocket League. And you should aim to only look at the ball for about 50% of the time that you play. The rest should go toward checking the cars on the pitch, or checking where the paths are when you're driving around, or where you think the ball is most likely to go based on where the players are. So in other words, see the players, see the cars. You always want to keep track of where all the players are on the pitch, because it gives you an idea of how much time you have with any free touch, if the ball is actually contested, how much time you have to rotate back before your teammate gets in a really sticky situation, and the most important for this playstyle, where are the players so I can avoid clearing it into them, so I can clear it into open space and pressure them. But then also this plays into being able to pass, because you want to check for where your teammates are and see if they're upfield or on your side with a free and open position that you can pass to. The key to passing is really being able to see your teammate when you do it, and having checked that no opponent is covering that passing lane. So the most important thing to look for is how far away are my opponents before you decide what touch you're gonna take. This will determine if it's a good time to clear or not. Maybe you have to control the ball and just roll it or flick it. Another thing you want to pay attention to is checking how wide you need to rotate to get the optimal angle on the ball. Right? Because to clear the ball downfield, we have to come from our side going forward and position yourself so the ball is between you and the opponent's goal. You can only do that by having a wide run up and angle toward the opponent's net. So check how much time you have and if you can get a wide enough angle driving around the ball to touch it forward. And if you can't, then don't clear it into the sidewall or your back corner. It's better to either make a rolling touch and not commit yourself, or just reposition. And you can practice the awareness by using mental cues. Anytime you're rotating back or off picking a boost, use your eyesight to click on all of the players on the pitch. Or if you can't do all of them, at least do the opponents. So speaking of practice, let's get into how we can actually train to be able to execute the things we've talked about. As for car control practice, we want to utilize a couple different training techniques, among which are the boomer ball or ping pong exercise. And we want to make sure we're implementing good clearing technique into this. You want to start off by driving into the ball with power, not flipping. You can single jump, but preferably just drive into it. Then after that, get into a wider, kind of circling position, keeping your momentum high and making sure that the ball keeps high momentum. Then when it bounces out to a place you can reach, drive into it with momentum, boom it, and then drive out into a wide position again. You're basically playing ping pong with yourself, and you don't want either your car stopping or the ball to stop. But one key thing here is you want to make sure you're not chasing after the ball, but meeting the ball in the direction that it's going. And as for the clearing technique part, you want to make sure that you're touching the ball below the center of the ball, so that you can send it going up. And you might ask, well, why aren't we flipping into this? That makes my car go faster. Well, that's simply because it builds bad habits for real games, where you don't ideally want to flip into all of your ball touches, and you learn to get power even without them. But ideally, you should check out my video on shooting technique to learn about how to get maximum power with your touches and how to make it really consistent. But assuming you have a job and you're busy with life, you have a family, how much time should you be spending practicing versus playing? While training is really great, you're gonna get most of your practice done in real games. Trial by fire, or you learn by doing. And I would recommend an 80-20 split between your ranked game time and your free play custom training workshop kind of training routine. As for free play, I would say you need between 10 and 15 minutes per day, and this includes between your games being played. But I do definitely recommend a warm-up of at least 5 minutes before you get into your first game, where you at least nail down your kickoffs and your powerful clears. And as for workshop maps, honestly, you don't need to do them every day. It's just when you feel like you need a break from ranked, when you need to just sit down and practice your technique, you should invest a session of 15 minutes or so every few days or once a week or so. So to summarize, how do you rank up in your 30s? I recommend you transition into a playstyle that focuses more on low risk, high reward plays. Specifically, I recommend you focus on learning to do powerful clears toward the opponent's net instead of doing slow dribble plays or high aerial plays. The goal is to punish the opponent's greedy playstyle and be aware of when you can shoot the ball directly. So how do we do that? By clearing the ball downfield above and behind the opponent, coming in with a wide approach and momentum to get maximum power and height. How do we get more of those shooting opportunities? By staying behind the ball and trying to not be the first person to commit for a challenge, so that we don't end up in front of the ball without any options. If the opponent has a dribble, we utilize fake challenges to try and make them give the ball away without committing for it. We're not trying to be overly passive, but rather trying to close down the space without committing for the play. How do we ensure that we're doing this correctly? We always check where the opponents are and make sure we have a wide run-up with momentum so that we can take the touch with power that we want. And we're aiming our clears and shots toward their backboard or at least very high in their net to apply maximum pressure and put them into the traps. Alright, if you guys have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. And if you're interested in private coaching, check out my Medify. Thanks for watching and see you later.